Let's do it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Black Men with Purpose podcast. For those of you joining us for the first time, it's a pleasure to have you with us. This is a safe space where we share our thoughts on a multitude of topics in hopes of helping Black males, young and not so young, overcome obstacles and challenges that can be hindrances to happiness, productivity, and success. We believe through our experiences, successes, and failures, we can have some conversations that might help other Black males in their respective journeys through this thing called life. On today's episode, since it seems like every season we have one or two episodes where we do a Q&A, and they seem to go over very well, and we get good feedback and good questions coming in. So this will be our first of the season Q&A, and we're just going to kind of jump right into it since again we got some good questions. So let's jump into it. First question. How effective do you think you have been in carrying out the mission of the Black Men with Purpose podcast personally?
Um, Personally, I think I think I'm doing a good job. Because we're trying to reach out with a positive message to Black men, I personally think that we're doing a good job. We all have our personal ideas, our personal thoughts, and everything. As to how things should go. I mean, we're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but being that I constantly am talking to young men when I'm out and about, just happen to strike up a conversation with them. I personally believe that that is the mission of our podcast, making sure that we are spreading a positive message to these young Black men and even Hispanic men, whatever. But of course, our focus has been the Black men. But I think we are doing a really good job. I would like to get everybody else's feedback as to what you think, so I don't want to.
Sure, I'll go next. Looking at the question, how effective have I been personally in carrying out the mission? I always talk about remembering the meetings that we were having and, the different things that we want to take on and the different situations. And I look at the climate that we find ourselves in. So I wouldn't give myself personally an F. There go the DJ. but I do know that there's lots of room for improvement. So I'm always trying to look at the podcast and figure out ways to how we can structure our conversations to be more productive and helpful to an audience outside of us. I'm always trying to figure out a way to get us all on the same page and kind of, for me personally, just how can we be more creative with our topics, with our formatting? How can I be more of a representative of what we stand for? That's always important to me. But again, I'm definitely I'm always of the opinion that the biggest room in the house is the room for improvement. So, I believe that as a part of the collective, I've done some good things, but I definitely don't think that I've hit stride or maxed out or any of that, especially, again, like I said, every time we come together, I always consider those meetings that we were having. And we were, we came on the idea to do a podcast because of the way that we're geographically separated. But I think about all the things that we talk about, and I feel like there's a lot of room for me personally to improve on building on those things. LJ agrees.
Go ahead.
Oh, no. I try to share our links on not on just the media platforms that we have, but I try to go outside and use LinkedIn. And so it's been effective because I've had a couple of actually young men just like, hey, why don't we do something like a men's group just based on what we have done with Black Men with a Purpose. So it's been effective as far as getting the outreach and reaching the masses or reaching people that want to see a change, not only just in their own lives, but just changes in their community. So it's been working out.
I'm probably more along the lines of what John stated. I don't know that I'd give myself an F. You know, uh, I think showing up, you probably deserve a little better than an F. And I've tried to show up. But as I think back to some of the original conversations, uh, yeah, there's a lot. One, there's a lot that needs to be done. I'll state it like that. And I think that collectively, we have a lot that we can pour in, sow into others, uh, even if it's just based on, what we've learned along our journey, mistakes we've made, things we wish we'd known along the way. And so I always think it's a good thing to try and pass off some of the things that you've learned. So maybe someone else wouldn't have to learn it the hard way. And I don't know about y'all, but I had some tough lessons along the way. So nothing life changing, life altering, if you will, but some things I'm like, wow, yeah, I wish I had known that before going into that situation or making that decision or that choice. And I'm a firm believer that, our life is nothing but, a reflection of the choices we've made along our path. So for me personally, certainly lots of room for improvement. Uh, not as technically savvy as the rest of you brothers, uh, but definitely know that I have a lot in me to pour out. And so, as John stated, just looking for creative ways to do that. I think would probably be my number one thing to focus on.
I'm going to speak for myself and for all of us. And I know, both um, John and Rod said they wouldn't give themselves an F, but the fact that we are now 3 seasons into this thing, and we're not exactly where we wanted to be yet, but we're still showing up every week. We're still preparing. We're still here. We're still putting in some work. We're talking about these different topics and doing all of that. I think I would give all of us at least an A minus. Um, I do agree also with John and Rod from the standpoint of, there's always room for improvement. Always, 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 always. There are things that we can do better regarding living up to our purpose for the podcast. But again, I think overall we are doing a pretty good job. And I think things can only get better from here. I'll also make a quick comment regarding, I guess, how I initially read into the question until everybody answered it. I thought it was, kind of more about the purpose of the podcast and how it's applied to what we're doing personally in our lives. But I guess I misread that. So, yeah, and as far as that goes, real quick, I would say that I've been at least effective in doing that as well for the most part, even though there's some life-changing things happening right now. And so I have to find new ways to kind of mentor and do the different things, now that I'm no longer, teaching. I'm not doing, my hands aren't in all of the same pot. So we have the podcast, and then I also have to find new ways to be able to, affect or really reciprocity, right? I mean, I had Black men who poured into me over my life, and I want to be able to continue to do the same. I've done that over the course of my life, and now I have to find another outlet to include this podcast to be able to do that. So, all right, next question. When you think about the issue of lack of leadership in the Black community, in what ways do you think Black men can step up to become better leaders and create better leaders in young men?
So I'll just say by being present, quite simply, being present, being there. It's one of the things, when I look back on, even my own experiences, uh, it would have been cool just to have someone present, you know. Uh, so I think that the first and probably most important thing they can do is be committed to just being present and open and willing to give back, realizing that that young people really are our future, you know. And but I will also say, one, you have to care about what that future is going to look like first and foremost. But one of the things that that I've learned along this path is that as you get older, you realize that wow, you can probably have more time behind you than ahead of you, and when you get to that point, you realize, man, did I really make the most use or the best use, I should say, of the time that I had? You know, and a lot of times, if you want to leave your mark and optimize your dash, it is through giving back to others. And I typically, tell my own sons the most important thing that you ever do are the things that you do for other people. Uh, and that's what provides impact to their lives. So,
Totally agree. Like feel like you snatched that answer right away from me. No, it just, for us to have that better leadership, man, we could easily fall into that trap of, oh, this is bad, that is bad. But I think that personal responsibility question will always be, how present are we? And so um when I think about the issue of the lack of leadership in the Black community, the way that we've got to step up is to be available, is to be present, is to make true inroads and true connections with generations behind us. I always laugh when we talk about, oh, well, them young men coming behind us, they ain't this, they ain't that. And I was like, they are responsibility. So what they aren't falls on our shoulders because we were supposed to be the ones that showed them the way. So, I take a lot of responsibility for that. And I take a lot of pride in how I interact with my young lions, that are related to me, that are not related to me, that I mentor, that I'm connected with. And I also try to find ways just to connect and to get past this idea, oh, well, Generation Z and millennials and this, that, and the other. And people are people, and when you take the time to genuinely try to connect with people, and then it just comes with the territory. We all come with resumes of leadership and of service and all of these things. And so when you can genuinely connect, that's an automatic download just by being in our vicinity. And then that can be even so much more heightened when we become more intentional about it. So I believe that, we might not be able to come up with some national initiative, but we could do something right here in the neighborhoods where, we find our feet sitting in. So
Yeah, I think that both of you, said it, perfectly with regards to being present, right? Just being present and doing, again, going back to that last question, what we're doing here, right? Just with this podcast alone and what our purpose is, that's part of how we step up and how we, are present. And there are obviously other ways as well. But the other thing I will say is I am not completely sold on this idea of the lack of leadership in the Black community, to be honest. I think that I think there's been a reimagining of what leadership looks like in the Black community. It may not be what we're used to, what our generation was used to, but when you think about it, every generation, with regards to how leaders have been, um, has been a little bit different, right? There were people who were traditionalists, Black folks who were traditionalists who did not believe in the way that, say, Martin Luther King, Adam Clayton Powell, Malcolm X, all of these leaders from civil rights, their parents and grandparents didn't necessarily agree with how they were going about it. They thought they should just kind of sit back, and kind of do as they were told and not stir the pot and things like that. So they didn't think that that was leadership. And so I think for our generation, we just have to adjust and understand what leadership is going to be looking like with the millennial Gen Z generation and the generations to come. It's just a little bit different. Times are different. Technology is present. We have all these different things. So yeah, I think we've gone past the stage of having, you know, those sorts of leaders, like these 4 and 5 leaders or more, right, that are just out there and present. And I think sometimes because of that, people think there's this lack of leadership in the Black community. I think about the late Dr. Julia Hare, who's the national executive director for the Black think tank, who said, "Don't ever confuse leading Blacks with Black leaders. And Black leaders are chosen by you, the people, whereas leading Blacks are chosen by the media." And so I think that when I look at what happened after George Floyd was murdered, right, and all of the young people, the way they stepped up, right, that's and just did all of the things that they did with regards to marching and everything else. And so again, leadership just looks a little bit different than what it was. But I think it's remarkable to see kind of a new generation of agitators, disruptors, abolitionists, who are rising to the occasion. They were willing to risk their lives for the Black community, right? After George Floyd, and for other things as well. And so I don't want to take up too much time. I probably said too much as it is. But again, I agree with both John and Rod, but I also am not completely sold on this lack of leadership in the Black community. So
Topic is really, I think that what we need to make sure that we are doing is like what we did like when we were in the military. We have to make sure that we're encouraging these youth instead of thinking that because they have thoughts and ideas that they don't know what the heck they're talking about. Some of our best ideas come from the upcoming generations, the folks that are coming behind us. And the last thing I want for us to have is that dinosaur mentality where we're all thinking, well, because this person is in their early 20s, early 30s, whatever the case is, that they don't know what they're talking about, because in our generation, I mean, realistically, all we've ever seen when it came to, I guess, leadership in the Black community or people speaking out for the Black community was Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, and lately Ben Crump. But there are a lot of folks out there who are trying to carry the torch forward, and we have to give them that opportunity and make sure that we support them and again encourage them in doing so.
Yeah, I like what everybody's saying about present. I think you got to be the best at wherever you are. You just got to make if that's your house, if that's the kids around you, wherever you are, you got to make that. How the other day, one of the parents at the bowling alley came up to me and say, you never told us you was a doctor and you were retired military. No, I just come in and walk it about a title. He was like, wow, we just find it so that, just work with other kids, not just with your son. And I thought about how my dad was a blue collar worker. And I know when I was growing up, sometimes I would have an attitude because like, man, because he was working, but yet my dad was present. And so where he was, and he made the best of where he could be. And I think for not have the national stage or whatever, but or just make it the best wherever you are. And I think that's how we can impact our community.
I think that the issue of our perspective on leadership or the devoid of it, I guess again boils down to our experiences and the spaces and places that we find ourselves in. But I would like to maybe talk more about that off camera or in a later session because I have a lot to say. So I just want to put that out there.
question number 3: how are you different than you were this time last year?
Uh, and and that's kind of a broad, general statement, but I think that I find myself uh, more focused on the things I think that matter most to me, most of my life, uh, and I think that's something that continues to grow and evolve. But I think just taking steps to be, better disciplined and more focused is the thing that just jumps out for me.
Yeah, no, I would say that's a good word or a good phrase to use. More focused, and also my health is drastically different now than it was last year. At this time last year, I was making changes, but now here we are a year later, and those changes have kind of really been solidified, and I'm feeling better. I'm doing better. But I'm also not only more focused on my health, but actually I can't even say more focused, I guess, on growth and development, because I've always been for years focused on that, right? And so to me, anybody who can say that they're not different 365 days later, you're doing something wrong. You are doing something drastically wrong, and you need to change your hustle somehow, some way. But so yeah, I would say certainly I have grown quite a bit from the time from where I was at this point last year. And there's some life changes happening for the good going on right now as well. And just yeah, more focus, I think, is a great way to put that,
More focus, definitely. I will definitely say this. I over the last year, I've put together a bunch of different skill sets and knowledge that I don't know exactly what I'm going to be using for moving forward, but I just got a bunch of them now. Like from last year to this year, with classes and different trainings and things like that. I've got a whole bunch of different skill sets. And, like Kev said, I feel like we're evolving and changing daily. So, I tell people all the time, if you talk to me a month from now, I'm not going to be the same as I was. So,
right?
shame
Absolutely.
if we don't believe in the fact that we're evolving. Even people that don't realize that we're all changing. So, it's been one of those years where, again, I think I try to consistently focus on personal development. So I know that I've developed in ways, but a lot of this I have not quite yet seen how I'm going to be able to plug it into some of the things that I'm interested to do. But I know that I do have a vast set of skills that I've added in the last 365. So we just got to figure out where to put them and, where they go. So
The one thing I could say that I'm doing is that's different. Well, I'm growing, and when I say that, I mean I've always tried to evolve, but as you guys know, I didn't have a relationship with my daughter. I really didn't have I had a relationship, but not a great relationship with my bonus daughter. And I'm trying to grow into that role. Um, I think I shared this after my birthday. That on my birthday, I talked to my biological daughter for 3 times that day for 2 3 hours at a time, and then for my bonus daughter to call me that evening and spend 2 hours on the phone talking to me about what was going on in her life, and me being able to try and provide some extra fatherly advice, even though she has a father who's active in her life. But I had to let her know and remind her, hey, I didn't make you, but I don't look at you any less than as my own daughter. So for me, the one thing I could say is that I'm just trying to grow more into the role of being dad and not being overbearing, understanding that both of my girls are, one's 31, or will be 31, the other one's going to be 28, or they are 31 and 28, excuse me. um, and just trying to make sure that I'm giving them the best advice when it's asked for, instead of me giving it to them unsolicited. So I'm just trying to make sure that I'm evolving and growing to my role as a father that both of them will love and appreciate as they get older and progress through this thing called life.
I'm in a place now. I'm just trying to enjoy every day to the fullest. As we get older and we see people that transition. For me, this time last year, it was always go, 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 make that money, pay this bill, do that. And now I'm just like, you know what? Let me enjoy my family. Let me enjoy, what you work for. Let me enjoy your accomplishments. Let me enjoy just being present. And I think when you do that, to me, I think I've relieved a lot of stress on myself. You can't worry about what other people gonna do, what other people gonna say, but I've learned to just enjoy each day because tomorrow's not promised. So you want to live every day with no regrets, and you've heard that before, but now I'm really at that point where every day I'm living with no regrets. When I go to bed at night, my goal is did I do something that I wish I could have done better? And so that's my goal. Let me just make sure every day is that I live better than the day before.
Good stuff. Question number 4. What are the 4 books that have influenced you the most? I'm very much looking forward to hearing y'all's responses on this.
You guys know I'm not a big reader at all. Reading is one of those things I don't enjoy as much as most people.
So Cat in the
But
Hat?
no, nothing quite that simple.
Medea goes to jail.
Medea goes to jail. No, I didn't read that one either. But I can't say I can. I have read the Bible twice. I've read the Quran once. The autobiography of Malcolm X I've read 3 times because that book to me was the evolution that Minister Malcolm made, from where he started to where he ended was just it was just phenomenal for me. And then I was given a pamphlet that I read last week. I call it a pamphlet. It's a real little book, As a Man Thinketh. And I made sure I brought it with me. My buddy Montez gave me this when I was in Dallas last week. And I sat there, I read it while I was at his home, and I've read it since I've been home. And that book just it helps me, it's helping me focus on what we're doing here. Again, evolution, and becoming a better man. That's the one thing I've always wanted to be, is become a better man, better husband, better father. I'm growing into those other roles as I, like I said, by the father. I know there's something I can do every day to be a better husband to my wife, but then there's always something I can do to be a better man to the people that are around me. So, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, that is the most influential book that is in my life, and I will read it again here in the next few days. So,
all right, my 4 by my favorite author ever, Toni Morrison, beloved, changed my life back in high school. The Alchemist, definitely The 4 Agreements, and but my 4th, I was like, I really want, because I have different ones, but I was like, man, I really want to think of something that was written by a Black author. So I'm being selfish, but man, it's one that's kind of new in my collection. But it's really changed how I view a lot of things, and that would be Eloquent Rage by Brittany Cooper, Dr. Brittany Cooper.
Oh man, I actually just bought that book recently. I've been wanting to read it, and I have it now, and it's near the top of my list to get read. So yeah, that's cool.
It's strong.
Yeah. Well, since you put it on me, I guess I'll do my 4 now. And Ray actually took 2 of my 4. And the 4
I know.
wrote
The biography of Malcolm X, man. I almost put that one too. So I said, nah, I'm
y'all I didn't even have to say that, right? Y'all already knew that was going to be number 1 for me. But So yeah, definitely number one. And you know, I'm going to throw out a caveat too and say that if you ask me this same question next month, three of those four books will probably be different. But
Facts.
in the
Facts.
moment when I saw the question, the four that I came up with, the one that won't change ever is the autobiography of Malcolm X. But um, the other three for me are Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, which was just an amazing book. Viktor Frankl was someone who survived the Holocaust, and oh my God, his story is the fact that he was even able to not have any resentment, any anger, any long lasting, well, I shouldn't say any long lasting impact. Obviously, you can't go through something like that and not have something, long lasting. But his attitude through it all and how he describes how we all should think through things essentially in that book was just amazing to me. I don't know that that book may also remain no matter when you ask me this question. um, but As a Man Thinketh, um, and by James Allen, which was the other one that Ray mentioned. And then for me, the fourth one is a book that I actually read last year called Becoming Abolitionist by Derica Purnell, young black woman. She's in her 30s, I think. But that book changed my life a bit because I've been on this journey for the last, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years or so, maybe, um, with regards to my ideas regarding prison, right? And the prison industrial complex. And over that, during the course of that journey, I've really become a full on abolitionist of prisons. And I don't believe we should have prisons. I don't believe people should be in prison. And I also think Felicia brought it up to me today when we were talking about this. She was like, "Y'all should, talk about that." And I think we should have an episode regarding the prison industrial complex because I would love to further that conversation and get y'all's thoughts on it. But going back to the book, her book, I wasn't exactly sure. I was kind of hesitant at prison abolitionist because I didn't totally understand what it all meant. But her book, it was an epiphany for me. Like I totally, after I was finished with that book, I totally understood what being an abolitionist, a prison abolitionist means. I totally get it now, wholeheartedly. I'm 100% a prison abolitionist. And so her book did that for me. Become an Abolitionist, Derica Purnell. So that's where I'm at.
So the so the Bible for me is number one for sure. It it provided me I guess a compass, uh, an insight into my purpose. So that's definitely one. Uh, the other is countering the conspiracy to destroy black boys by Dr. Jawan Kanufu. Uh, it really, for me, just provided insight and great depth to growing up as a black boy in this country, and really was kind of my first through provided insight into the institutional nature of our education system and what it does or doesn't do for people of color in particular. And then the Alchemists for sure, and uh, Tax Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright. Because it helped me to realize that if you're not winning uh, at the tax game in America, then yeah, then you're really losing. So those are my four today.
Like John, I think my first introduction to Black literature was Maya Angelou's book, I Know Why the Cage Birds Sing. That was the first book. Well, it wasn't the first book by a Black author, but that was the one that resonated with me the most, as she talked about her childhood growing up in Stamps, Arkansas. So that was the first one I read. Another one that I like is John Maxwell. John Maxwell is a spiritual growth writer, but he has a book that's called Make Today Count. And he talks about how it's so important that, tomorrow will take care of itself. Yesterday is done. You got to make today count. And so I like that book, how he just illustrates how you can make your day more impactful to not only just you, but the people around you. Another author is Max Lucado, who wrote a book called Releasing the Burdens That You Were Never Meant to Carry. And I thought about how in his book, he just talks about how we as people, we end up picking up stuff that we're not supposed to deal with anyway. And we try to run with it. We trying to help little mama. We're trying to help the kids. We trying to do everything. And there's some stuff that we just weren't meant to carry. And he talks about how your relationship with God will help you carry some of the things that you deal with. And then, like you all, the Bible, I have to read that almost daily, for what I have to do during the week and on Sundays. But then the other book recently was Black Excellence. George Harrison talks about his journey coming up from the South, going into the Air Force, becoming an engineer, and in the 60s and 70s, working as an engineer at a major 500 company, and being, like some of us experienced, the only Black man, only spot in the room. But then how do you overcome those obstacles and still become what we think or what we like to achieve or becoming successful? So those are a couple of the books that I read. I had Becoming Michelle Obama on my list too. That was an excellent book too. I kind of snuck that in from my girl and read her book. And but yeah, that was a good book too, Becoming Michelle.
All right. Number 5. As a Black man, how do you feel about the prevalence of Black women in leadership within the Black community?
But it's like, as a Black man, I totally support it. And I think, I think it does kind of just speak to how I think all of us have been extremely blessed in that era or that area where we've seen plenty of strong Black women in leadership for decades, and to see it become more prevalent, which is something I say all the time, is that when you're seeing firsts in certain communities, it was never about the fact that they weren't capable of. It was always because there was a man-made imposed restriction to keep them from. So whenever you see the first Black person, this and the first woman doing this, and this never had anything to do with somebody's ability or competence. It had to do with, prejudice, racism, sexism, all of that kind of things, and those type of restrictions. But as a Black man, I feel like it is definitely coming along. There's still strides to be made because the glass ceiling does definitely still exist. There's still, I think about a story that I tell often, but I think it's a pertinent story to tell. Two of my sister friends, we were all chiefs in the Air Force, and I come casually telling the story about how my team got out of line and I had to cuss them out, and I'm talking to them like, yeah, when y'all teams get out, that's what and they both giving me this blank stare like, no, we absolutely don't even live in that world where we could go and cuss our teams out and there wouldn't be any type of damage to us in our career politically of some sort, and just understand. And then not just assuming it, but having the conversations. And, there's just certain ways that we move as men that they often are socialized not to move or not even allowed to move. So as a Black man, the prevalence of Black women, I don't believe that it's even a prevalence, but I'm liking to see the increase of Black women in leadership within our community. So I think that's important. Yeah, Black women.
I agree, 100%. I think it's a beautiful thing to see, and in fact, it's a long time coming. It's a shame that we live in a world where you're really just now over the last, I don't know, however many years at this point, decade or so, you know, i- seeing that happen. And women have called for that for forever, forever. And yet they will always kind of, unfortunately, told to take a back seat. I even think about in the civil rights days, and you think about the women who were prevalent in the civil rights era, but even they um, they would get upset, right? And they would, tell the NAACP and some of the other organizations, look, y'all aren't giving us a voice here. You know what I mean? We need more of a voice, and they were kind of shooed away. Unfortunately, even though you do know some of the names, but they didn't have the voice that they should have had. And so it's a shame that we're just now coming to a day and age where women are being able to take their power, I guess, so to speak. I think about Angela Davis, who obviously was even around back then, and the Kimberly Crenshaw, Stacey Abrams, more recent, and Nicole Hannah Jones, and amongst my favorite, Ilhan Omar. Tell you right now, if she ran for president, I'd vote for her. Love her, love her, love her, love Ilhan Omar. Anyway, Michelle Obama, right? I'd love to see, and even some of the lesser known ones, maybe. I mean, you think about that Black Lives Matter movement, Patrice Cullors and Alicia Garza. But I think it's great to see it. I really do. I support it all day, every day. I'm here for it.
Good point. I would take a different approach at this question and say that I've always seen it, right? Which really goes back to one of the questions we had previously, you know, about there being a void in leadership amongst Black men in some instances, so watching women lead families. I know for a fact. I had a lot of friends that, the only reason they lived to be adults was because of the leadership of their Black mother, right? So yeah, so I think it's great, and I think that anyone that frowns upon it uh, should then ask themselves, well, where are the Black men that you think should be in that place instead of them? So I guess for me, I absolutely applaud it, and I think that any of us that might feel like we're losing out because they are finally getting the credit that they deserve. Uh, should probably, look back and see, what have we done or what could we have done differently and better, if we believe that they're not worthy of that uh, type of publicity or notoriety. So that's uh, that's my thought on that question.
Personally, I love it. I'm gonna go down Rod's path a little bit, because for me, um, having my mom as a Black woman business owner in Warren, Ohio, there was only a handful. Her and her cousin, they were both cosmetologists. They both owned their own salons. They both hired stylists to come in and work in their salons. So I did get to see it from that aspect of it. But the leadership within the Black community, I love seeing women get to or navigate to where they are, you know, based on their qualifications versus who they know. And then plus they have to walk that fine line, because as a black woman, they also have to face the fact that they have to be extra careful, because they don't want to be portrayed as that angry black woman. I look at Ketanji Brown Jackson when she was um, going for through the nomination process for the Supreme Court. She answered every question beautifully, but she still had to walk that fine line, because even though they were asking her questions that had absolutely nothing to do with her record, she still couldn't come off as that angry black woman. She had to sit there and take what they were dishing out, which was garbage, and navigate that path to get to where she is now, which is the first black woman Supreme Court justice. So I love seeing it. Anyone who does not, then I'm with everyone else here. Maybe you need to check yourself as to why you have a problem with seeing a black woman as in a leadership role. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm like the rest of y'all, man. We excited about what our sisters are doing. The thing we just have to do, we just have to support them and pray for them, because once they make it to the table, man, they become a target. I mean, when you look at Miss Gay at Harvard, and I personally know two sisters who were superintendents of predominantly white school systems, and they formed boards to get rid of them after they were rated, when they made it to the highest level as being director of education for two school systems. They have people that were purposely, like from the day one when they walked into their job, there were people who were trying to get rid of them. But I love the fact that where I live, this part of the country, we do see a lot of black women in leadership. Prince George's County, our executive Angela Alsobrooks is a black woman who also is running for U.S. Senate. The current fire chief in Prince George's County is a sister. So, and I'm just very, very fortunate. And I was telling the kids a couple of years ago, I said, hey, you guys are very, very fortunate that you do see black leadership living in this part of the country. Because once you start going out to different parts of the country, when you start going to the Michigans, when you start going to the Iowas, to the Indianas and Ohio, you're not going to see it as much as you do here. But yeah, you see women in leadership more prevalent, in this area, maybe in Atlanta, where you see principals, you see bank managers, you'll see the manager at the car dealership is a sister. So I applaud it, and they're well overdue, but at the same time, we definitely got to support them, because once they reach to the table or rise to the top, they immediately become a target.
Cool. Question number 6. Do you think college is a must as we used to think? Why or why not? I guess I haven't gone first on any of these questions yet, so I'll jump on this one. This is actually kind of a tough one for me, because you all know how I feel about education. It's huge. It's been a huge part of my life, and I've always preached it. And so it's still important to me, without a doubt. But I guess when you say, do you think it's a must? I guess I would question, what do you mean by must? As in, um, what are you? What's the goal? I guess is what I would want to ask. I think that if you're just strictly talking from the standpoint of, getting a good paying job, a good career, making money, that sort of thing, within the Black community, then no, college would not be as important now necessarily as it used to be. Um, because the world is so much different, right? There was a time when, pretty much as a Black person, that was really the only way you were going to even have a chance to be successful, right? Was to get a college education. There were a few exceptions to that rule here and there, but they were few and far between. Certainly when I was growing up, and certainly, before my time. Um, but in this day and age, things are just different. I think there are a lot less people seemingly going to college, and people are still being successful. You have YouTube, you've got TikTok, people making millions and millions of dollars off of these different things. And so I think from that standpoint, again, just from a economical standpoint, from having a career or whatever the case is, no, I guess it wouldn't be considered as important. but I still do again think that it's extremely important. Um, and I won't linger. I have a lot that I can say about that, but that's just kind of I'll just go. I'll stop there with that.
I think that we should start each new season out with the Q&A, because I feel just like you, brother Kev. Like,
Yeah,
man, these are topics for shows, because
yes, they are.
this is one that really, really needs to be unpacked. Because the question asks us, do we think college is a must? And I would interject that I don't think college was ever a must. So I think that when you say it's a must, you extract value from what college is, because now you're saying that it was something that was not, and then that puts us in a spot where we're trying to shoot down the merits of college, where if we could start the conversation lower and just talk about how important and how valuable college is versus it being a must or not must. So I would first say I don't think it ever was a must. I just think it was very valuable, and I think sometimes that conversation is more pointed towards, I'm gonna edit that out. So it goes back to a time when to have the corner office and wear suits to work, you had to get a degree. And they say, well, it doesn't matter. You have to go to school. And, when you get the good job and you're making $40,000 a year, you're really living in, like, we all know that $40,000 is crazy. Like, that's poverty in most places in the United States to make $40,000 a year. But, I think about the value. I love academia. I love talking to people who spend time really, taking that time to research and develop ideas and
Absolutely.
thoughts. Like, so the value of college and the value of higher level academia, I think that we don't even, put it in the right perspective, So I think college is very important. There are experiences that I got living on campus as a college student that I just wasn't going to get nowhere else. Like, living on campus and all anywhere else. No, like, they're just experiences in the way that it developed me as a person. And it's not for everybody. And should people not be able to survive and thrive in the United States without college? No, I don't think that's fair, but I don't think we should use that as the scale to say how important or how valuable college is, because I still think it's extremely valuable. There's just some more conversations that we need to have about equity and access to a quality education. And, conversation that I have with young people all the time is like, hey, I know you want to go to a 4-year, but trust me, man, community college is the cheat code. Like, you need to try it, get up on it. It'll help. So, but that's all I got.
College, I certainly don't think it's a must, like I was led to believe growing up. What I do think, though, is a must is the consistent and constant pursuit of knowledge and education, especially about things that you might not have any knowledge of. So, and I think, there's some people that believe, in the value of a college education, and I get that for certain types of jobs that might require it. But what I've learned is that really college is just to prove to companies, organizations that you have the ability to stay focused for a number of years and go through that process. Because when you get on the job, you might have some background, but they typically are going to teach you what you need to know to do what they want you to do. You know, however, your pursuit of knowledge and education to learn things that will provide you with uh, opportunities in ways that you wouldn't have had you not known, to me is more valuable. Uh, and a lot of times you can get it without the ridiculous student loan debt that comes with college. And that's not to discourage anyone from going to college. It is to say that college is not for everyone, and you need to go in with your eyes wide open and really hyper focused on what you intend to get out of the experience and how you intend to use it to enrich your life going forward.
John and Rod actually hit the nail on the head when they talked about the value. I would say college is not a must, but it depends on what you believe. If that's going to help you get to where you are trying to go, then yeah, go to college. But you might be someone that likes to work with their hands. Just a quick example. I mean, I just had to drop almost $7,000 to a guy for a plumbing job here at my house, because my plumbing backed up. So this guy didn't go to college, but he went and learned how to become a plumber. He went to school to become a plumber, and now this man is making, 120, $130 an hour being a plumber. My mechanic, I have a mechanic that he used to work for Ford here in the Tampa area, Parks Ford, and he left Parks Ford and opened up his own business. And that man is making again 120, $125 an hour to work on my car. So it really depends on what you want to do. College is not necessary, in my opinion, unless it is something that is what you desire. But as Rod stated, we should all be in trying to learn something new every day. And when you go into these vocational career fields, guess what? There's continuing education because you have to keep up with what you are doing to maintain your proficiency in your profession. So to me, college is not a must unless it is something that you really want to do and it's something you can afford. A lot of people, we all joined the military. Wasn't because we couldn't afford to go to college. My parents were taking care of me. I went for 2 years and wasted time. It wasn't for me. I had to learn on my own that college wasn't for me, and I decided I wanted to do something else with my life, and that's what led me to the Air Force. But yeah, I don't think college is a must as it was taught to us, but it does play an important role if that is something that you value.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor that. Everything you guys have already said, basically, said. I don't think it's a must, but it does provide options for you, I believe. And again, like what Ray was saying, it just depends on what area you're going into. It's obviously, you don't want to go into open heart surgery and have somebody that has never gone to medical school. So, so it just depends on, again, what you're trying to do, what you want to do in life. But like, for us, like you said, when we was growing up, it was like, oh no, you gotta go to school so you can be a teacher. And, that's our community, that's what it was limited to, because our education experience from some of our parents before us, it was just very limited. So for them, it was a push, you got to go to school. But now, based, like what Kevin said, there's so many opportunities now for young people, shoot, for older people. There's opportunities out here too. Look how many old people you find on TikTok making money. So
Right.
but yeah, no, it's not a must, but it provide other options for you?
I'll
Absolutely.
say this too. If college did nothing else for me, my research skills and my critical thinking skills are absolutely next level. And yes, I am tooting my own horn regarding those two things because I am great at critically thinking and research, and I would not be able to do either of those things, I don't believe, as well as I do had I not gone to college. So, I'll throw that out there too for whatever that's worth. So,
Yes, sir.
you know,
Salute, brother.
yeah. Well, do we have time for one more? You good for one more, B?
It's up to you.
Or
Yeah, I'm
I'm gonna
good.
leave that
Let's do
one.
one more. Let's do
Okay.
one more.
All right. Cool. All right. How have you, as Black men, showed up as protectors of the community? And quite frankly, this is another one that we could probably do another whole episode on. But
Uh, so you'd have to really define protectors. of the community. Uh, I'll just use a different word uh, as a contributor, uh, which leads to, I think, ultimately, or could lead to protection, and that was uh, giving back and sowing into the lives of young black men uh, when I coached AU basketball. Uh, and for me, it was in the beginning, it was a way to get involved and give back. Uh, and then also, it was a game that I loved and that I used to be good at. So I figured, I had something that I could, yeah, I had something that I could maybe provide them, since that was something that they really loved, you know. But I will tell you, from the very beginning, the one thing that I always share with them is that for me, it was really about the opportunity to positively influence their lives and not just basketball. Uh, there's no way in the world I would have put up with and done what I did if it was just about basketball, you know. But the opportunity to make an impact, a positive impact on their lives. And in some cases, I mean, I was, the black man that they looked up to, and took that role and responsibility very seriously. Uh, and it really got into other things, what it means to be a leader, you know, and how most everything that you're engaged in, there's a leadership matter involved in that, whether it's choosing not to be the class clown in school, leading by example, you know, being respectful towards your parents. I mean, it was just a lot of things. We taught young men how to do laundry, for themselves, as opposed to believing that someone's daughter was born into the world strictly for that purpose. So I just think there were a lot of things, a lot of life lessons, life skills that we had an opportunity to instill in them, and which I think that contribution helped lead them to the importance of, giving back to their community, leading a family, being a protector, ultimately for their own family when they had one, and some of those things are instinctive, but I think, when they can see an example of it and have it reinforced early on, uh, it stays with them. And I've had several that have come back and been like, hey, thanks, coach. We really appreciate it. What you did. Didn't really recognize it or appreciate it at that time. But now that I'm grown and I have a family of my own, I see the importance of what you all did for us. So I'll leave it at that. I could talk about that subject all day, like you said. So.
One thing I like to do, um, and I know we've all discussed this at length quite a few times. I like to go and make sure that I support Black businesses within my community. I know I don't live in the community that most folks do live in, but I make sure that I go out and support Black businesses that might be struggling or that are just getting started out. I like to make sure that I go and give them my money because if I don't help support them and they fail, then what did I do to help them? And if I at least didn't support their business and buy their products or what have you, then I'm failing them as far as I'm concerned. One of the things I used to love to do when I was a recruiter I used to go back to my schools, whether it was my elementary school that I grew up in, my middle school, high school, whatever, and I would talk to the students. You know, we all had a misnomer about what the military was about. So I used to love walking into my schools and that I grew up in. I walked the halls in as a little boy, a young man, in a uniform that was tightly pressed. I put taps on my shoes so the kids could hear me coming down the hall. Everybody's like, "Were you trying to be a TI?" How the TI would come, you hear that click, 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 and you just straighten up. Well, I would walk into a school with those taps on my shoes, and the kids would automatically turn around and say, "Who in the hell is that?" And then here it is. I come down the hall. So it was an attention getter for me. But I used to love going back and talk to them about, the importance of their education that my teachers used to tell me about, and that there are other options if you don't want to go to college. The military is here for you. We're always looking for new people. And then as an adult, even over the past few years, I had a real good friend of mine, um, young lady. I'm not going to discuss her situation, but she ended up going through something really horrific with her husband and her daughter. And needless to say, her husband is going to spend the rest of his life behind bars. And the daughter, everybody knew whose daughter she was, and the only thing I could do was try and support from afar. I tell her I'm her Florida fan club, and I would either send her gifts every time she got a great report card. I did what my fifth grade teacher's husband did for me. He would send me gifts to let me know, hey, I'm paying attention to what you're doing. I'm proud of what you are doing. And the last time I actually saw this young lady, when I went back to Warren, I actually sat with her and said, "Hey, I'm your Florida fan club, and through everything, all the adversity you've gone through, you've managed to still graduate with honors, and you are to be commended for that. And there's nothing that you can't do." So I like to support my community in that manner as well, because again, this young lady went through something horrific. Everybody knows who her father is and where her father is going to be for the rest of his natural life, and she really needed someone, a father figure, if you will, to step in and say, hey, you keep doing what you're doing, and you have people out here cheering for you. So that's what I like to do. I won't call it as a protector of the community, but that's what I like to do to give back, things of that nature. So
I think my answer would be similar to all the other brothers. As a protector of the community, there's the protection of your presence. I'm present in my community, in LJ schools. I'm present in some local things that we have here. Maybe not as present as I've been in places where I had more of a support system. And, that's more of ability of not able to stretch myself as then. But not only is protecting in the organizations and the groups that I'm in, but also as a protector of our history and our ideas. It's amazing how much of our knowledge is lost. You have generations that aren't aware of why things are the way they are and what our cultures and, these important landmarks of our culture. And so trying to definitely make sure that I'm a protector of culture, what it means to be a Black man in this country, and not so much in the specific ways that we sometimes talk about, but more in a generalized way, in the way that I show up in the conversations that I have and in my mentorship and in the way that I share with the people that I have the privilege to be connected to. This podcast, we get together and we're stepping up as protectors of our community with the conversations that we're having, whether we're agreeing or disagreeing. That's good to see Black men get together and have dialogue, and we all come from different areas. Me and Byron, we from the South, and then then you got Kev and Rod all from the East Coast, and then we don't hold it against Ray that he from Ohio. You know what I'm saying?
The Rust Belt.
but so it's important to to protect our customs, our cultures, our ideals, and our history too. So I think we all show up in that way too. So
Yeah, being a protector, like Rob was saying, I mean, how do you unpack that? Where do you start? I think it just starts where again, we talked about earlier about being present. You protecting where you are and being present in your community, in your household, your neighborhood, wherever that is necessary for you. And then guess what? That's going to change based on, how we grow from year to year. For this season, you may be protecting, you know, um, the home. You may be protecting children. The next year, you may be protecting, the right to vote. And so it just depends on where you are. And I think for us, we can't get so distracted that we're trying to do this, trying to do that, trying to protect here, that, or whatever. I think if we are present in where we are and be present in that moment and be active in where we are in that moment and protecting, if it's our family, if it's our own sanity for some of us, just being present in that moment, I think speaks volume to you as a black man. I think when we become lackadaisical and you don't value anything, then I think that's the problem. But I think for us, being able to be present in our very moments is definitely a necessity for us being protectors for sure.
I think we all have done a lot of things. And again, I point right to this podcast, right? I mean, just the fact that we're all here showing up every week doing this, I think that's part of protecting the community. And, it's part of what our purpose and our mission is here. Um, you know, I also I think about there's a couple of quotes. The first one is, are you climbing the mountain to be seen, or are you climbing the mountain to see out? And I think for maybe a good portion of my life, because I have a lot of achievements, fortunately, and accomplishments and things like that. Thank God. But I think for a good portion of my life, it was more for me to be seen, maybe, even if I didn't view it that way. And I got to a point in my life where I stopped looking at it that way. And then the next quote I wanted to use is Albert Einstein, right? Strive not to be a success, but rather to be a value. And so I started looking at things more along those lines. I think initially when I said, you know what, once I decided I wasn't going to get commissioned, I said, you know what, I think I want to make chief. Um, I think initially it was just to make chief, maybe a lot of it. But then I started getting to a point, maybe at master sergeant, senior master sergeant or so, where it was like, you know what? I want to make chief, but I want to make chief for the right reasons, right? And my values changed a little bit. My perspective on things changed, and the community started mattering to me more. And so at that point, me accomplishing things became a lot less about me and more about the community and what I could do to help the community. And just the mere fact of being a chief, you all know, and for our viewers, I think we've talked about this before, but being a chief is the highest rank you can achieve um, in the military as an enlisted person. And just that mere fact of being a chief, you already know that you're going to have the younger black guys looking up to you and coming to you for advice, right? They're watching what you do. They're watching how you move, right? They're going to, not only are they watching, some will just watch and that's it, but some will also come to you for advice. And I wanted to be that person. I wanted to do it for all of the truth, but I wanted to do it more so, I would say, for the black troops, especially the black guys, right? I wanted to be that person that they could see, who's made it to this point, right? Who's done some good things in his life, who they can come to for advice. And so I think that's one of the ways, and there's some other things I can point to, where I've done some of those same things, whether it be getting a PhD or whatever. It's not just been for me; it really hasn't. It's been so that I can be of more value to others, to the black community, and not just for the mere sake of saying, "Hey, look what I did, look what I can do." And so I think those are some of the ways that I've tried to contribute and protect the community. We have a lot of other questions that we can and we will get to. If not, obviously not with this episode because we're gonna we're going to end, but we do have other questions that we think are valuable. And I also would love to just hear the responses from you brothers as well. So with that, we want to thank each of you for taking the time to join us as we wrap up this week's episode. I want to leave you with a quote from an unknown author who said, "You can't have faith and worry in your life at the same time. One will dominate and the other will yield. Let faith dominate." Till next time, peace.